So I'll be talking about monitoring our small mammal reintroductions to Booderee National Park. So why reintroduce species to Booderee National Park? Well, first of all, Booderee is found over on the coast, a few hours east of Canberra in Jervis Bay Territory. Since the park was formed in 1992, the park has been subject to a range of disturbances, including grazing, local clearing and forestry. Foxes were also numerous throughout the area, and these are implicated in the demise of many small mammals. However, since 1999, the park has had really good predator control, so this includes fox baiting. And monitoring has shown that fox numbers are now really low in the park, and cats are almost not detected. The park is co-managed by Parks Australia and the local Wreck Bay Aboriginal community. And the Wreck Bay Aboriginal community supports the reintroduction program as they see it as restoring cultural ties with species that supported their ancestors. The park is also subject to some long-term monitoring, and this provides us a really good baseline against which to evaluate the effectiveness of this reintroduction program. And so all these are really good reasons again for why we're reintroducing species to Booderee National Park. So what species are being reintroduced? Well, first of all, we reintroduced the long-nosed potoroo back in 2014. And then in May this year, we reintroduced the Southern Brown Bandicoot eastern subspecies. And this will be the focus of this talk. We also have plans to reintroduce the eastern quoll at some point into the future. And all these small mammals were once really common within the local area. So who's involved with this program? It's a big collaborative project. First of all, Parks Australia are leading the reintroduction. And in particular, Nick Dexter, who's pictured down here in the bottom, he's put together this program. And it's supported by ANU in terms of the monitoring. Taronga Conservation Society are providing support in terms of vets. New South Wales Forestry Corporation are giving us the bandicoots, and we have a whole lot of volunteers that have helped with the monitoring. So the Southern Brown Bandicoot eastern subspecies is one of 5 subspecies of the Southern Brown Bandicoot, and it was once a really common bandicoot. So across its former range shown here on the map, it was found from around Sydney all around the southeastern mainland into South Australia. However, it's now endangered at a national level, and its distribution is now patchy across that former range. It occurs across a range of habitats, including sedgeland, woodland, forest and heath. However, structure is really important. So the Southern Brown Bandicoots like a dense understory vegetation in which to nest in and some sort of open areas in which to forage. They are considered an ecosystem engineer, and by this I mean they provide services back to the ecosystem. So the Southern Brown Bandicoot is one of our digging fauna. It likes to dig for roots and fungi in the soil, and by doing this it turns over the soil, and this is really good for soil health. So the objectives of our reintroduction program are to re-establish a self-sustaining population of Southern Brown Bandicoots in Booderee National Park. And secondly, to evaluate the success of the program by monitoring. So we've outlined a few criteria against which we're monitoring the success of the program. And this includes, in the first year, we'd like to see that the numbers of bandicoots are stable and or increasing in number, and there's signs of breeding. By year 2, we'd like to see an increasing population, and with individuals that were born at the park now adults. And by year 5, we'd like to see the population stable with dispersal beyond the initial release area. So the reintroduction program aims to reintroduce about 45 bandicoots over 3 years, and this will be about 15 bandicoots per year. And the bandicoots are being wild caught down in state forest down in southeastern New South Wales from the New South Wales Forestry Corporation estate. So we're catching them wild down there, and then we're transporting them up to Booderee and releasing them into an unfenced environment. So as I mentioned, there's been really good fox control in the area, so we've reduced the risk, and so we feel that that's a safe environment in which to reintroduce the bandicoot. The bandicoots are being hard released, and by that I mean we're catching them down near Eden and transporting them after we've done the initial health checks up to Booderee, and then releasing them straight into the wild without any extra support. The monitoring program is designed to understand the survival and dispersal of bandicoots and also to determine their home range and habitat preferences. And we'll do this by, we've done this already by intensive radio tracking. So after we first released the bandicoots, we had intensive radio tracking for 4 weeks, both during the day and at night. And this radio tracking utilised up to 30 volunteers to help with the monitoring. We'll also do targeted surveys, so we'll put out camera traps and cage traps in the release area to understand how they're faring in terms of their health and body weights. And as I mentioned, the park is already subject to some broad-scale ongoing monitoring. So Parks Australia already do small mammal trapping every 3 months, and they have camera traps out to monitor the predators in the park. ANU also does annual small mammal trapping. So as I mentioned, we wanted to release up to 15 bandicoots in the first year. However, as we're catching them from the wild, we can't guarantee what we're going to catch and the numbers, etc. So we ended up catching 12 bandicoots down near Eden, but we also set some minimum criteria against which the bandicoots had to meet to be part of the program. So these included things like had to be of good health, of good body weight and reproductively viable. So of those 12 bandicoots, 1 didn't make the cut. So we ended up with 6 female and 5 male. And after some initial health checks done by the Taronga vets, they did things like measure their heads and feet and weigh them. And from that information we found out that the males were on average about 1,200 grams and females were less than 800 grams. So over a 2-week period we released 11 bandicoots with up to 2 individuals being released per night. Before we released them, we attached these little radio transmitters to their tails, so that's you can see up there in the top left. And this allowed us to track them through after we released them. So we tracked them during the day to the nest location so we could see where they're actually nesting. And then at night time, we actually did triangulations from the roads. So we had volunteers and teams of people stationed along roads and tracks within the park. And then we triangulated the position of each bandicoot by lining up all the bearings. During this 4-week period, we did lots of tracking, and over that time we didn't detect any mortality of any bandicoot. Radio tracking data was also used to understand the dispersal and movements of bandicoots. And so on average we found out the bandicoots dispersed 500 metres, but this ranged from about 200 metres to 1,000 metres, with males on average dispersing much further than females. And I have here a couple of diagrams of examples of a couple of different bandicoots. So on the far left we have Ned, a male bandicoot, and he was released, on both these images the release location is the blue triangle. So yeah, Ned was released at the blue triangle and he hung around the release location for a couple of days before dispersing off into the northwest there, and his last recorded location is the red square. And next to him, just to his right, is another example, a female bandicoot we named Charlotte, and she released there at the blue triangle again, and then she didn't really move very, very far beyond that initial release area. We've used the radio tracking data to calculate home ranges of the bandicoots, and this is, I'll just warn you, is some preliminary data analysis, so there's still some fine tuning to do. But we've calculated home ranges using the 95% minimum convex polygon method. And we found that on average the bandicoot home range was about 10 hectares. So each of these polygons represents 1 bandicoot, and as you can see, they've got overlapping home ranges in the diagram, and all the dots represent the locations that we recorded them at. I mentioned earlier that the bandicoots like a range of habitats, and in this particular area that we released them in at Booderee, there were 3 primary habitat types. So we have forest in purple, woodland in green, and heath in yellow. And we released the bandicoots evenly across those 3 habitat types. But from our tracking data, it reveals that the bandicoots overwhelmingly moved into the heath and or heath woodland areas. So what have we learnt so far? Well, from our monitoring, we can say that they survived the initial release period. After 4 weeks of radio tracking, there was no mortality detected. We can also say that they're still present in the park. So some recent monitoring done by Parks Australia picked up 2 of our bandicoots on cameras not far from the release area. So on the left we have a female, and next to her we have a male. So that's good to see. Also, part of their every 3 months they do small mammal trapping. They picked up another individual, a male, and he was found to be in really good health and similar weight to what we released him at in May. There's also evidence of scats and diggings in the general release area. So these are all really good signs that they're still present in the park. Monitoring will continue, so we're going to continue to monitor in November next month to look for evidence of breeding. And based on these results to date so far, the reintroduction program's been quite successful, so we'll continue with the second release of individuals in May next year. So as I mentioned, there's a range of collaborators that have been involved in the project, including Taronga Conservation Society, Wreck Bay Aboriginal Community and Forestry Corporation. And I'll just finish with a video of Bonnie. This is one of our bandicoots. So she's here foraging next to the road. And yeah, we're really lucky that with our radio tracking, often the bandicoots would come down at night time while we're radio tracking and forage along the roadside verge. And so we got to see bandicoots up close and personal doing their bandicoot thing.